Hi, boys and girls. My name is Andrew, and I am back with another episode of Andrew Reads a Kid's Book. Now, this week, I chose a really special book, and I'm so excited to read it for you because this used to be my absolute favorite book when I was a kid. Like, the most favorite book ever. I read it all the time, and I lost it at some point over the last 20 years. I lost my book, but I wanted to read it to you, so I ended up buying another copy of it just so I could do that because it's such a great book. And I think you can all relate to it because we've been stuck inside our houses and apartments and whatnot for almost 3 months now. And this book is called Christopher, Please Clean Up Your Room. And after all the time that we've spent inside, I am sure that we've all had a messy room at some point over the last few months and that we've been asked to clean it up. So I think this is a great story for you today. So let's get started. So today we're going to be reading Christopher, Please Clean Up Your Room by Ita Sadhu and illustrations by Roy Condi. Okay. Christopher lived on Glen Place Avenue with his family. He was a fine young man who helped his neighbors with errands and did his chores. He was good at sports and came first in his class. One thing Christopher wouldn't do was clean his room. His clothes were scattered around. Books and papers and magazines lay all over the floor. The dust was piling up. Christopher's room stank. The socks under the bed were cheesy. The sandwich behind the door grew fungy. The room was so untidy. The shoes smelled funky, and the fishbowl stank. Whew, that is one messy room. Christopher's mother refused to go into his room because she thought there might be snakes in there. His grandmother, when she visited, always fainted. His father never went too near Christopher's door, and when his friends slept over, they had nightmares about rats. Yikes. When they complained, Christopher just said, "I like my room the way it is. I can find everything. It's comfortable like this." And he refused to clean his room. His parents tried everything. Christopher couldn't have dessert, but he wouldn't clean his room. He couldn't watch TV, but he wouldn't clean his room. He wasn't allowed to have friends over, but he wouldn't clean his room. The socks under the bed were cheesy. The sandwich behind the door grew fungy. The room was so untidy. The shoes smelled funky, and the fishbowl stank. Whew. Now, the two goldfish who lived in that fishbowl were becoming quite concerned about their health. Christopher had not changed their water in weeks, and it was green and murky. They felt like they were choking. So the goldfish decided to find a way to get Christopher to clean his room. All that day, they thought and talked, but they couldn't come up with a plan. That night, as they were having supper, they spotted a cockroach hurrying across the room. "Mr. Cockroach, Mr. Cockroach," one fish said. The cockroach stopped. "Good evening, Miss Fish. Miss Fish, what can I do for you?" "We need your help," replied the fish. "We need to get Christopher to clean up his room." "Oh, no indeed," said Mr. Cockroach. "I can't stay here. This room is much too dirty, much too dirty. I only take shortcuts through here to get next door, and besides, he likes it like this. He'll never clean up. The socks under the bed are cheesy. The sandwich behind the door grows fungy. The room is so untidy. The shoes smell funky, and the fishbowl stinks." Whew. When the cockroaches think your room is too dirty, then you've got some serious problems. The fish started to cry. No one would help them. They were doomed. Mr. Cockroach looked at the floor. He hated to see fish cry. He felt so sorry for them. But what could he do? Suddenly, he had an idea. "Don't cry," he said. "I will speak to my people and let you know what we can do." And he went off to the big sugar feast at the store next door. That night, the cockroaches met and planned. Word was sent to the goldfish. The fish were happy because they knew that the cockroaches were just right for the job. At 11:30, it began. Thousands of cockroaches had gathered. Cockroaches from east and from the west. Cockroaches from the north and the south. There were cockroaches of every kind. They put on their gas masks and at 11:45 started to crawl towards Christopher's room. Ew, it's so gross. Christopher was sound asleep. He had played a good game of baseball that day, shared a sundae with his friend Hal, and had once more refused to clean his room. Someday, when he was older, he might clean it up, but for now it was comfortable the way it was. The socks under the bed were cheesy. The sandwich behind the door grew fungy. The room was so untidy. The shoes smelled funky, and the fishbowl stank. By 11:55, the cockroaches were in place. The goldfish looked on as roaches landed all over the room. Every surface was covered in a mixture of shades and colors. At midnight, it began. A cockroach dropped on Christopher's eye, and he blinked. Another one dropped on his nose, and he brushed it away. Suddenly, one dropped in his mouth, and he woke up with a start. Ugh. He turned on the lights, but he could not scream. He was too shocked. He tried to brush the cockroaches off his bed, but they kept coming and coming. Then the ones on the wall started to move. They spelled out, "Christopher, tidy up your room now!" "I'll do it tomorrow," Christopher said. The cockroaches replied, "Tidy up your room now. We mean business." And they started coming back towards him. Blue roaches, gray roaches, black roaches, brown roaches, striped ones, and polka-dotted ones. All kinds of cockroaches. They surrounded his bed. Fat ones, skinny ones, big ones, small ones, and they kept coming. Oh, gosh. I just shiver when I read about that. Christopher was terrified. He ran and got the duster, the broom, the vacuum, and a laundry basket. Quickly, he started to pick up all his clothes and put them away. He looked up, and a quarter of the cockroaches were gone. He dusted his books and shelves, tidied his papers, and looked again. Another quarter of the cockroaches were gone. He swept and vacuumed, and another quarter of the cockroaches went away. He cleaned all under his bed, and the last quarter of the roaches went away, except for Mr. Cockroach, who stood on the dresser by the bowl. Christopher opened his window, and he took the fishbowl for a good cleaning. When he returned, Mr. Cockroach went away too. The fish were happy, and the wind blew through the room again. Everything was nice and clean, light and bright, spick and span. Even Christopher felt better. He jumped back into his bed and fell fast asleep. The next morning, Christopher's family was amazed. His mother came to see his room. His father came to see his room. His grandmother came to see his room. Even his friends came to see his room. But they were puzzled. What had come over Christopher? Well, Christopher isn't talking, but any time there is a speck or a spot, a pile of dust, a crumb on the floor, or a bunch of clothes on the chair, Christopher cleans up. He remembers only too well the night of the cockroaches. And there we have it, kids. That is Christopher, Please Clean Up Your Room. Whew, I literally have goosebumps right now from all those cockroaches. That's so gross. I never want to have cockroaches in my bedroom. So this is a good lesson to everybody to make sure you clean your room. Now there's another thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about now that we've finished reading this book. And it's because I want to talk about why I chose this book today. And you may have noticed on the news or your parents or your friends talking that there are a lot of people who are really angry right now. And they're protesting and making their voices heard that they're not happy with something that's going on in the world right now. And that is because they are not being treated fairly because of the color of their skin. Now, when I was reading this book and you saw some of the pictures that came up, I'm sure you noticed that Christopher has black skin. But one thing that I really love about this book is that the color of his skin has actually nothing to do with the story. He's just Christopher. He's just a regular kid. He likes music, he likes sports, and he happens to have a really messy room. So, in a lot of ways, he's just like you. And I think this is a really important conversation that we start having because I think it's really important that we start treating each other with respect and kindness, no matter the color of their skin. And I think that's a really important message that's going around right now. And I just think that it's okay for us to talk about this kind of stuff. So I urge you to read more books with kids that look just like Christopher, and books with characters that don't have the same color of skin as you, because there's a lot of people in the world who look differently. And it's really important that we treat each other with kindness and love each other and love your friends and love your neighbors, because that's really, really important. And you guys, as kids, you are the future, and you are able to make change in the world. And that's why I wanted to read this book, so you can take some of the things that we learned today and then go and spread the good word and tell your family and tell your friends and bring the change that the world needs. But it starts with cleaning your room. So thanks everybody for watching and listening today, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.